Hey, what's going on, y'all? It's your boy Devon Franklin, and guess what? You are getting ready to watch the Good Culture podcast. I just did this with them. Listen, you're gonna have to drop everything and watch it. It's incredible. A lot of information about dating, a lot of information about how to be single, a lot of information about how to, handle a relationship. Right now, we're backstage at Paul Quinn University. We're getting ready to do an event on my new book, The Truth About Men. I wish we could have you watch what's going to happen at Paul Quinn, but you're not here for the podcast. God bless. Can't wait to get y'all there.
I be taking no meetings, early flight in on AM. I'm from travel, I'm seasoned. I've been feeling mid-season. I've been working on these.
And then we're going to get to the main attraction. But our special guests are unique in that both of them are community folks that have developed a much larger presence and a much larger voice. Now, the first person I'm going to introduce you to, you probably have seen on TV. She is an amazing attorney whose views on legal matters are so respected that they are broadcast all over the world. She's an HBCU graduate. Give it up for HBCU love. She went to law school at Southern University in Baton Rouge. That's right, we give her a little bit of love. It's a little Jaguar pride, all right? But give it up for Yodit Tewolde. That's not a lot of love. Give me a little more love than that. All right, our next co-host is from Oak Cliff. Can we get some Oak Cliff love? He is a graduate of the University of North Texas for undergrad, went to business school at Texas Women's University. Is a good brother. Best we can tell, he only made one mistake in life. One mistake. He's a dog man. Right? The wrong side of 1911. But we love him anyway. All right, he does a great job with the Hip Hop Book Club. Let's give it up for our man, Kenny Reeves. All right, so one more time. Let's show some love for our host, and then when our primary speaker comes out, I want you to give him an enormous Quinnite Nation round of applause and welcome. Can we do that? Can more than the first three rows over here do that? Can we do that? All right.
All right, Paul Quinn, what up? How y'all feeling? Everybody good? Yodit, how you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I'm kind of nervous though.
No, you're not. No, you're not. I'm with you.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so Kenny and I are so incredibly humbled and honored to be here tonight for Voices That Matter series here at Paul Quinn. We've got a great event in store for you. I mean, we get to have an intimate conversation with a New York Times bestselling author, an international speaker, a renowned preacher, an award-winning film and TV producer. The list goes on and on. I mean, Oprah even called him the bona fide dynamo. Who's a different kind of spiritual teacher for our time. So without any
further ado, without any further ado, I need everybody to stand to your feet and give a Paul Quinn welcome to Brother Devon Franklin. All right, we're finna get a little closer. Devon is moving furniture already.
True. Hey, how you doing? What's up, y'all? How you feeling? Everybody feeling good? Yes. Who already has your book? Right on, right on, right on. I love it. I
love it. Thank you all for coming out. I do believe the truth will set us free, and tonight is all about that. And I couldn't come to Dallas without coming to Paul Quinn. So thank you all. Say it again. What is happening?
It's the City Girls. It's some new stuff.
It's a new thing?
Some new stuff.
Period. That's it. Period. All right, period. I'm out. Or I'm out. Period. Okay. Thank you for putting me up on the period game. I appreciate it.
All right, so we're going to dive into the questions already because I'm kind of itching.
All right, let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Okay,
All right.
come on. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to start with honesty here, transparency. When I first saw the book and I saw the title, The Truth About Men, it kind of turned me off because we've seen books like this before in terms of how-to instructional type of books for women. Think Like a Man, or Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Man, for example. I read that book, front to page, or front to back. And it seemed more about a chess game in order to outsmart the other or the opposite sex. It seemed like it was more about chess moves in order for a woman to find a man, eventually get the ring. When I read your book, however, I was completely surprised because it wasn't a how-to. It was less about outsmarting the opposite sex and more about an understanding of the opposite sex.
Yeah.
Was that something that you kept in mind when writing the book?
Very much so.
Okay.
I did not want to write a book about what women need to do better.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I really felt like, there's been many books written, about what women need to do better. And as a result, so often when it comes to this, it's like, well, here's what women are not doing to get a man or keep a man. And there's no attention put to the man. And in my opinion, most of the time, we're the problem. And yeah, I said it.
Speak like King.
The truth. But there's a reason why we're the problem. There's a reason why we have challenges. So I wanted to write a book that was more about understanding. It's not pointing the finger. It's not vilifying men or anything. It's like, how do we start to talk about the things that are really affecting our culture relative to our issues as men and how those issues are affecting everybody. And so I was very cognizant of that. I didn't want to have a book where I'm mansplaining and I'm trying to, explain what, in a man's voice, here's what these things are.
Right.
And if anything, for me, I wanted to be very clear. The focus is how we do our work as men. But I wanted to give women information along the way. Because I don't think that you can be successful with something you don't understand.
Okay.
And I don't think that most women understand men. And you don't, exactly. That's why I wanted to write the book, to give more information on here's what you need to know. And I believe once you have information, you have more power. Because there are some men that will not do their work. It's important for women to know that. It's important to know who you're dealing with. So that way you can make decisions to better navigate those dealings with those people. So I was very cognizant of that. I really was mindful, I just wanted to make sure that it was the right balance where I wasn't, veering into territory where I'm telling women, do this, do that.
Right.
Here's why you don't have this, have that. No, I'm like, no, here's why you're whole already. Here's why you're good. I really wanted to affirm women in that way and also lovingly challenge us as men to step up and do our work.
That's a beautiful answer. Before we get too much into the applause, I got to tell you something too. Honesty moment. I had a quick eye roll moment myself. But for a man, a lot of times when we see books, The Truth About Men, from the opposite side, we're looking at it like, dang, what are you finna say about us? What kind of truths he finna put out there? How you gonna have our girl looking at us tonight in the bed? You know what I mean? So, a lot of times the guys that write these books speak as if they're up here and they're writing about people that's down here. But your book doesn't do that. It comes from a place of self-reflection. It comes from a place of transparency. The question I want to ask you is, did you have a responsibility to represent the brothers well? Was that something that went through your mind, or did you want to have the most honest conversation about men?
Yeah, I think that honesty represents itself.
Right.
And I think that too often it's like for us as men the reality is us as men, we want to be tough, but the truth is we're very sensitive.
Truth.
And how do I know that? Because so many men what do you mean? You give away our secrets?
Yes.
Are you talking bad about us? It's like, wait a minute.
Why does the truth scare people?
Right.
You know, and so what I want to do is say, listen, this truth is a truth of me looking in the mirror as a man.
True.
Saying, here's what I notice about myself. You know, here's the things that I'm struggling with. Here's what I'm figuring out as a man. And here's what I believe other men are going through. So I was very mindful of like not pointing the finger, but at the same time, not being afraid
Absolutely.
to say, look, here's why we're struggling. Here's what I know as men. If we keep giving ourselves over to this struggle, here's what's going to happen. And ultimately, we have to redefine manhood. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to write the book, because as a man, when I bought into the idea, as a single man, the more women, the better, you know, I realized that wasn't true. It wasn't true.
Right.
Because what it was doing damage to me.
Right.
And I was doing damage to women, looking at them not as people, but as objects.
Right.
And so as a man, I said, listen, I have to decide what type of man I want to be. Am I going to be a man that heals pain or a man that inflicts pain?
Right.
And so that was me in the mirror. And so me writing this book, I had to be transparent, I had to be truthful. I revealed a lot in this book that people thought like, oh man, I can't believe you said that. But I'm like, I can't write a book where I'm encouraging others to be truthful if I didn't do the same thing.
Absolutely.
So it wasn't about, spilling the tea or any of that stuff. It's like, yo, if we as men keep these things secret, we're going to continue to suffer in silence.
Absolutely.
And there's stuff that we can do to become the men we were called to be, but it starts with being honest and truthful and admitting that we don't have it all together, we don't have all the answers, but we're trying to figure it out.
So when speaking to transparency, in the book you talked about a moment where you have to look in the mirror and ask yourself the tough questions. What are some things as men that we should be looking for in ourselves to kind of deal with the dog?
Let me explain what that is. Here's this book. The book is about love. The book is about love. The book is about how we as men learn how to love. Because I believe when we do that, majority of challenges that we're seeing in the culture will go away. But the challenge is we as men don't know how to love, primarily I believe because we don't actually know how to love ourselves.
True.
Because, amen, exactly.
There's a testimony out there.
Man, listen. She's standing on that one. I love it. Because, in society, there's a box that says, this is what a real man is. He's tough. He doesn't cry. He makes money. He has women. He has lots of sex. He dominates. He knows every answer. None of us men in this room fit that box. And we know it.
Absolutely.
But here's what happens. Here's why it's so hard to love ourselves. Because as we're growing up, when we do something that doesn't fit the box, most of us are met with violence. Stop crying. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Stop being a wimp.
Yeah.
What do you mean you're only dating one? Well, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
You're not dating right now? Man, you better come on. Did y'all hit yet?
Right.
That's what we get.
Right.
So as men growing up, what we learn is if I acknowledge that I don't fit the box, I will be met with violence. So I do anything I can to fit the box. I don't talk.
Right.
I hold back. I suppress. I actually don't like who looks back at me in the mirror because I've been told that person's not good enough.
Right.
Because if I don't have the right amount of women on any day, the right amount of money, my value and how I feel about myself goes up and down.
Right.
Because I'm basing my value on something that is false to begin with.
Absolutely.
So the reason why we don't know how to love is because we have to redefine manhood in a way where we find our manhood not in doing, but in being. Looking in the mirror and saying, this man that looks back at me is everything I need to be. And within me, I have everything I can to become who I've been called to be. So in the book, I talk about, here's our struggle as men. What keeps us from loving? Lust.
Yes.
So these are the two things that are important. So if y'all not ready for this conversation, you may want to leave. We're about to get deep. We have to go there.
She said get deep, so let's go.
Here we go.
Let's do it.
Here we go. So love is selfless. Love is sacrificial. Love of ourselves, love of God, love of the woman in our life, love of family, love of community. Every man has that love in them. But every man has that lust in them. And this lust is a selfish impulse for personal, professional, financial, or sexual fulfillment by any means necessary, even if those means are detrimental. I call love the master. I call lust the dog. Now, are men dogs? Of course not. I'm not a dog. You're not a dog. No man here's a dog. However, I believe that when we as men give ourselves over to lust, we can sometimes mirror the behavior of an untrained dog. What does that look like? An untrained dog wants pleasure for pleasure's sake. It has no discipline, no self-control. It's very destructive. It has its own needs. Its only focus is its own needs getting met. So when we as men don't love and we lust, when we put the dog over the master, we want the world set up for our pleasure. We want to have no discipline, no self-control, and if anybody tries to hold us accountable, we try to remove them. Because we want to do what we want to do. So I use this analogy to help articulate the problem, but also point to the solution.
Right.
Mastery. How do we get to the place where we put selflessness over selfishness? How do we get to the place where we put others' needs over our needs? How do we get to the place where we don't just date to do it for sport, we date with intention?
Yes.
We date not because that she's an obstacle, she's a person. You get what I mean?
Yes.
So that's why I use that analogy, and that's really what it represented.
1,000%. That's beautiful.
Okay, so in reading the book, there was a line that really, really disappointed me, and it was the part where it said that you state that the dog cannot be eliminated, it can only be mastered. That was very daunting for me. And it might have been naive to believe that, certain men go through a phase, we can call it the hoe phase, or the promiscuous phase, and
Speak life, Queen.
and then once they get that out of their system, they're good. I knew temptation was out there, but the dog perpetually lives inside a man. So does that mean that I'm automatically signing myself up for dog duty?
No. What I love about that, and this is why it's so important, one of the reasons why I wrote this book is for hope. Too often, I think women have just written off men. We're hopeless. It's over. But I don't believe that. I believe every man in here, whether they're living this way or not, truly has a desire to be the best they can be. Truly. But it's hard to walk that out. So the reason why I wrote that in the book is because I think it's important to understand that the battle that goes on within a man, between love and lust, between the master and the dog, has nothing to do with the woman in his life. Because so often women think, if as long as I can love him, fall in love with him, or get him to fall in love with me, that means all those issues go away. And this is why our relationships are failing, our marriages are failing, and our families are failing. Because we're not honoring and being open about the truth. The war between every man, it doesn't mean that love doesn't help, but every man has this in them, and it cannot be eradicated. I wish it could. But that shouldn't give you, make you hopeless. It should actually give you information to say, oh, I got it. And actually, in a way, you can be, in a relationship, you can be more of a support system. Because you can actually say, oh, got it. He's wanting more for more. Say, oh, got it. He's in love. Okay, let me help you. There's a way to have a dialogue that this book will help you in a way that otherwise you wouldn't have. So I didn't put that in there for hopelessness. I put it in there because it's the reality. And if I, as a man who is in the public eye to a degree, sit before you and say, I have mastered the dog. There's no more lust in me. Count your watch. You can literally count the days that you're going to see me fall. Because if I'm not in touch with the truth, then I absolutely will fall prey to the lie. That's why.
That's a bar. I think that's an interesting point, because in a recent interview with the Breakfast Club, I watched you and you talked about pain kind of being the onset for a lot of men to wanting to straighten themselves up for a woman. And I can kind of speak to that in a sense, because while I haven't caused pain in my current relationship, I've caused pain in the past. And I've seen pain and what pain can do to a woman, and learned for myself that I can't take this pain into the place that I want to go. I can no longer treat a woman like this. I have to straighten up and do right in that matter. My question to you is, and I appreciate y'all for the amens, that felt good. My question to you is, why is it always pain that straightens us out? Why do we have to see a woman hurt to get right?
He just wanted brownie points, y'all. He wanted applause. He wanted an applause.
He wanted the applause. He got him, though. He got him. Honestly, and I write about this in the book, sometimes the only thing that the dog in us understands is pain.
Right.
Because too often we are conditioned as men to live life as if we're the center of the universe.
Yeah.
And as a result, we sometimes can be unaware of the impact that we're having on people in a negative way.
Right.
And especially in relationships, especially when it comes to love, sometimes the most effective thing a woman can do if she loves us and we are not willing to change is to say, I love you, but I gotta love you from afar.
Right.
Because her absence may be the only thing that gets us to change. Why do we operate that way? To be honest, I don't know. I truly don't know. But one of the reasons why I wrote the book is to change that.
Absolutely.
Is to change it so that we as men start to say, who do I want to be? And not only who do I want to be, now I have information on how to become it.
Right.
I have information on how to practice mastery, how to put love first, how to practice sacrifice and selflessness, so that I don't get into a situation where the only language I understand is pain.
Absolutely.
You know, I think that ultimately is a result of how we've been living in the culture, but I do think it can change. And I do think it should change. You know, one of the reasons why I wrote the book is because, you know, growing up, my father died when I was 9 years old. I'm the middle child of 3 boys. And so I was raised by my mother, my grandmother, and my grandmother's 7 sisters. And, you know, I had a front row seat to their pain. You know, and most of the pain that they experienced were at the hands of men. And I don't mean physical pain, I just mean emotional pain. Of men doing one thing and saying one thing and doing another. And I talk about this in the book. You know, I found out in my teenage years that my father had an affair on my mother with another woman in the family. Yes, yes, and yes. And that devastated me. Because I'm like, well, wait a minute, you know, can we as men be faithful?
Right.
You know, if my father cheated on my mother with another woman in the family, to see the pain that it caused her devastated me. And I began to ask this question, well, why can't men, you know, do all men cheat? And why do we have this behavior? And so this desire to figure it out is what really propelled me on this journey. And then what I found when I got into dating was the more I subscribed to the world's view of a man, the more pain that I was inflicted. Why? Because when I was dating, I wasn't always intentional. And what I mean by intentional, I don't even mean thinking about marriage. I just mean not being honest with the woman I was dating about what was really going on. A lot of times as men, and I'm sorry I might mess up somebody's date tonight. Yep, okay, here we go. A lot of times as men, and I talk about this in the book, we will date relative to our needs. And that may mean there's somebody we like to date on Tuesday, there's someone we like to date on Thursday, and there's just a special one we date on Saturday night.
Yeah, you're talking it right now.
I know, I'm telling the truth. I'm telling the truth. But here's what happened. Here's what I began to realize. For a moment, it was fun. What I thought was fun. Oh, this is cool. You know, I can see this one here. I can do this. Da, da, da. Everything's cool. But then I had a vision from God. And here's what it was. I was at my wedding, and I was standing literally at a ceremony similar, you know, in a building similar to this, where there's a center aisle. And I'm about to get married, and the minister says, turn around. And down the center aisle were all the women I had dated. But here's the catch. They were cut open. They were slain. And God said, do you think it was worth all of them to get here? He said, don't play with my daughters. If you're not serious, let them know and let them go. And so what that did for me was it literally stopped me in my tracks, because up until that moment, I was inflicting pain. Why? Because I wasn't thinking of women as people. I was looking at them as objects for my pleasure. And once I shifted and had that vision, I said, I've got to stop. Because what's fun to me, she will live with for a lifetime, because it's not fun for her. She's thinking something's happening. So I put in the book, it's so important to stay out of a gray area. I'm going to help somebody here right now. Here's where the gray area is. There are some men, again, who are not willing to do their work. They haven't yet read the book, so they haven't tapped into mastery yet. If you are dating and you are in a gray area, here's a gray area. It's an area where you may talk all the time, you may text all the time, you may have gone to church, with them. You may have met their parents, but never have you asked the question, are we together? Are we committed? Are we single? Are we exclusive? Why is this important? Because a man knows what he has said and what he hasn't. And I guarantee you, even if you see him every day, if he has not told you or you have not asked if you're committed, I guarantee you he thinks you're not.
These are facts.
That brother's like, hey, his sister's like, yo. Yes, if a man has not told you that you are together, I guarantee you he thinks that you're not, even if you see each other every day, even if you're texting, talking, so on and so forth. Why is this important? Because this book gives you information on how to deal with that. The dog likes to hide in shadows. You got to bring it into the light. How do you do that? You ask clear, direct questions, and you wait for clear, direct answers. If somebody gets upset at your questioning for truth, don't let their anger distract you. It's only there as a smokescreen. Stay calm and cool. Ask the question again. It's not a multiple choice question. Are we together exclusively or not? It's a yes or no. Are you seeing anybody else? Yes or no? Am I the only one? Yes or no? Oh, good God Almighty. Come on now. We got a testimony in building. Period. You know? And what that does is now you can take the power back. Because in a dating sense, the person that has the most information has the power. And so it's important to not be afraid to ask the question to know what's up. Because too often, when we as men are not operating in mastery, it turns us into a manipulator. Where we manipulate situations for our pleasure at the expense of those people that are being manipulated. And it's important to stop that. But until a man gets a hold of mastery, he may fall into a habit that is that. But once a woman has information, she can put that to an end. Because she can no longer tango with him, because it does take two to tango.
Okay, so ladies, I'm going to take some accountability, okay, for us. Do you think that women, you talked about men having to fit a box. Do you think that women help create that box? And when I say that, I know you and your wife, Megan, in the way...
Give it up for my wife. She sends her love. She's sorry she can't be here with you all tonight.
But y'all talk about...
She'll come next time.
Y'all talk about being celibate when you were dating. And while you two encourage others to do the same, some women feed into the double standard that men, unlike women, should be having lots of sex, have a high body count, have had that whole phase that I was referring to earlier, or something is off. Why do you think some women refuse to hold men to the high standard expected of women concerning their sexuality? And do you think that plays a part in feeding the dog?
Absolutely. I think it comes down to one word. The myth of scarcity.
Yeah.
So
right?
Here's what
Ladies?
I mean by that. Here's what I mean. We keep saying, oh, there are not enough good men out there. So the more that goes out into the world, then sometimes what's translated is scarcity. So whenever there's scarcity, whenever you get something, you try to hold on to it. So if water if it's a scarce supply, there's not a lot of it. When I get a bottle, I'm gonna hold on to it. Now you know this water is tap water and it's not filtered. It's okay, I still got water. Right? But this is why so often, sometimes in my experience, that women in this scenario you're putting end up agreeing to less than what they deserve because they bought into the myth that if they don't, they'll be alone. And I don't believe that. I actually don't believe that. I do believe there are a lot of good men out there. I do believe there are a lot of worthy men out there. I do believe that there are a lot of men. Come on, men. Come on, masters out there. Kings, come on. Some masters in the audience. Let's go. But here's what happens. And I talk about this in the book. For a woman, you have to be careful how you get the man.
Yep.
And why is that important? Because if the woman appeals to the dog to get him, you can't date the dog and then marry the master.
Facts. Say that.
You can't date the dog and then marry the master. So you have to be mindful of how you do it. But on the flip side, I say this to men too. Just because she wants you doesn't mean she's for you. Just because there are some, this is true, there are some women that know that lust is a weakness in men, and they seek to exploit it for their gain. And they actually don't mean that man any good. So it's so important. This brother about to get up out of his seat right here. He's like, what? I love it. We having a good old truth talk here, Paul.
Yeah.
So it's so important It's so important.
All right, y'all.
It's so important. Here's why this is important. Because to go back to the question, it is important that we not believe in the scarcity. We not operate as if there's a limited supply. And also, don't accept less than what you're worth. And when it comes to sex, it's an important thing. It's an important thing to talk about. So, I was at Facebook about a month ago, and a similar question came up, and a young lady asked it. And so I said to her, after a month of dating a guy, would you give him the code to your phone?
No.
No. Right? That's what she said. And everyone in the audience always said, no, I'd never give him the code to my phone after a month. I said, okay, in your history, in the same period of time, have you already given him your body? That's a word. If you wouldn't give him the code to your phone, why would you give him your body? If you don't trust him enough with a device that you can replace, why would you trust him with something you can't replace? Can I say it? Can I say it? Period. So listen. If two adults choose that they want to have sex prior to marriage, that's their business, right? It's their business. So I said that in the book. What I would recommend, though, is that if you are not going to wait until marriage, you would at least wait until you're in a loving, trusting, committed relationship.
Wow.
That's what I recommend. And I think that's why sometimes you don't, because people are looking to feed the dog out of scarcity.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to do a follow-up to that, because in the book you say normalization is when harmful, lustful behavior becomes a normal part of a man's life. Now, this country elected a man who talked about grabbing women by the vagina, and we also confirmed another man who's been accused of sexual assault by multiple women to the Supreme Court, okay? Do you think society helps to normalize this behavior when we expect so little of men as a whole, or excuse sexual misconduct or rhetoric as boys will be boys behavior or male banter?
Yeah, I think that it's the latter, that it's really a normalization of boys will be boys. And I think that the culture profits and feeds off of lust. I think that, and that's one of the reasons I talk about it in the book, so that we can be more mindful of what we consume and what we do. And when we actually start to look, we start to see, oh, got it. This whole thing is set up in a way for us as men to never have to do our work, right? The whole culture is set up, and then when we fall, it's like, how could you? So I think it's really, really important to know what's going on in the culture. And relative to this issue, I talk about this in the book. You know, boys will be boys has been an excuse for us as men to get away with almost whatever we want.
Right.
And that credit card, we've been dining out on it, but now the bill is due. And it's high.
Yeah.
And we no longer, I don't believe just because we're men, that that's an excuse to do what we want. We have to become accountable and responsible for our behavior. Period. Amen. And I think when you reference what you're talking about, the question in terms of who's getting elected, put into office, I think it just indicates how much further we have to go as a culture and as a community. And that's why I wanted to write this book, because I believe we have to change. And if I, as a man, do not step up and say something, then I'm a part of the problem.
That's dope. So, in the book, just getting back to the metaphor of the dog being the metaphor for lust, there's a lot of examples of lust that you spoke to, and the dog can be lust for success, lust for sex, lust for adoration, lust for a multitude of things. But one thing that stood out was the lust for success. And you even talked about yourself, how you could want to stack achievements and get another achievement, and then you'll be on the chase. My granddad used to tell me a hit dog will holler. And when I read that, I hollered, because that's me. I have this thing where I want to stack achievements, and I want to do another thing, and I want to do another thing, and I want to do another thing. And my entire existence, I've recognized that as ambition or being ambitious. And a lot of times women they like ambition in a man. They think that that's attractive. You hear women all the time speaking about, I don't want no man that ain't doing nothing. I don't want no man that's sorry. So with what's the line between ambition and lusting for success?
Good question. It all comes back to intent.
Mm-hmm.
Why do I want this so bad?
Right.
Why am I so frustrated that I don't have it?
Right.
Why am I tempted to do anything I can to get it, even if it means going against my own morals, my integrity, and my belief system?
Mm-hmm.
We have to ask why. So I talk about this in the book, that I have a successful career, produce movies, have a great company, so on and so forth, writing books. But a lot of times I'm like, man, this is not enough.
Right.
I'm not doing enough.
Right.
And I find myself just saying, okay, well, I want to be like this person or do it like that. And then what happens is there's no peace, because it's always a chase.
Right.
And then not only is there a chase, but then there's a temptation to assign my value to what I don't think I have yet. So then when I look in the mirror, I actually don't like who looks back at me.
Right.
So what I had to realize is that the more that I believe that my value is tied to what I do, the more I will never actually have peace.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes when we're doing things, it's great. Sometimes we're doing things, it's not so successful.
Right.
So if we outsource that success to what we do, we can never actually feel it.
True.
So that's the lust that I've had as it relates to career and success that I've had to navigate and manage and say, I have to be content with what's already happening, while still saying, yeah, I would love growth in certain areas. I'd love to be able to expand, but not want it so badly that I can't actually enjoy the present.
Absolutely.
That's where I find the balance and the difference between, healthy ambition
Right.
and something that can be destructive or quote unquote lustful.
Okay.
Where we're just wanting it for wanting its sake, and that's all we can think about.
Right.
To the degree where we can't even appreciate the fact that we woke up today.
Right.
We woke up, we're blessed.
Yeah.
Seriously. May not have everything we want, but we're blessed. We have life. Every day above the ground is a great day. When I am chasing so badly that I just disregard life, I would argue that that's veering more into lustful territory.
Okay.
And it's okay to be a master and still want to improve. That's what mastery is all about.
Absolutely.
But it's all about the intention behind what we're doing.
It's beautiful. Let's go.
All right, Devon, you talked about the Me Too movement being one of the motivating factors for why you wanted to write this book. And with Time's Up. Now, I've heard men make jokes, including friends of mine, who would make jokes about not wanting to work with women, much less speak to them at work, because they didn't want to get caught up in the Me Too witch hunt, so to speak. Jokes aside, are those red flags for men who need to continue mastering the dog?
I talk about this in the book. I challenge any man that is afraid to work with a woman because of the Me Too movement.
Right.
I say that that's actually a reflection of that man's insecurity.
Okay.
I think it's wrong because the Me Too movement is not a gotcha movement. The Me Too movement was started by a woman of color over 10 years ago to give voice to those who had experienced sexual abuse.
Tarana Burke.
Tarana Burke. It was started by her. It just so happened that when the Harvey Weinstein thing came out and the incident came out, and that had a lot of other women speaking out, they then latched on to Me Too, but Me Too previously predated that by 10 years. So it was never a gotcha movement. It was always a movement to give healing to those that have been abused and to give a voice to the voiceless. And I believe that's still what it is. And I think that for any man to say, well, I'm afraid to work against women, no, you gotta go look in the mirror, bro. You gotta do your work, because when we as men buy into that, we actually make the problem worse instead of contributing to the solution. If a woman is talented, if she's beautiful, if she's qualified, we should be gravitating and celebrating that woman, not making her feel less than because we as men don't know how to control what's in us.
Amen.
That's beautiful. All right. So, I know you've been on this press run. You've probably answered 1,000 questions about this book. The last question of the night from us up here is for the readers. As the readers are getting ready to get this book, as they're reading this book, what is the lasting message that you want readers to take away in getting this book?
I think the lasting message is hope. We're all in this together. None of us have this figured out. As men and women, if we fight with one another, we can never actually work together to heal one another. And I really want anyone who puts down this book to have hope, to have information, and to say, okay, you know what? Maybe I was cynical, maybe I was negative, but maybe something can be done about it now. You know, that's really what I want. And I want also for men, you know, we struggle so much and we don't talk a lot. I want us to be like, okay, I can do this. Even if I didn't have a model of a father, just because I didn't see it doesn't mean I can't become it.
Amen.
I actually have a model now of what to do, how to do it. I have a sense of how to handle these urges. I have a sense of how to put mastery in dating and mastery in my life. I want anyone to put down this book and say, I got it, and I can do it.
That's dope. Devon Franklin, ladies and gentlemen. Now give it up. Give it up. So real quick.
Right on.
Yeah, y'all to your feet. Y'all to your feet. That's dope.
Yeah.
So we've set aside a brief amount of time to do Q&A with Devon. So this is the time where you bring all the stuff you've been sitting around saying period to, all the stuff that you feel in your heart. You have the moment to now talk to Devon. I think we have a young student walking around with the microphone, so please see her. If you want to speak to Devon, please find this young woman right here.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Years ago, when I was single, many years ago, I, like you, wanted a good man. And so when my husband and I started dating, I was like, oh, this is just too good to be true. And it took me a while because I had a trust issue. And year after year, I kept going, okay, sooner or later, it's not going to be as great as it is. But 29 years now, it's still been great. This one has been Judge Morrison.
Come on, Judge.
But I said all that to say this. Sometimes when you get a man, you're so busy reliving the past that you don't recognize what's in front of you.
Amen.
And I'm saying all that also to say that you can't lower your standards. When I was 29, my family was like, oh, you're not going to get married, your standards too high, you're going to be an old maid. And I'm like, well, you know what? I'm not changing. And surely enough, God brought the man into my life.
Amen.
That loves me like Christ loved the church. And I just want to encourage you, don't lower your standards. It's worth the wait.
Amen.
Amen.
Right on.
So I know a lot in the book you talk about like one of the best ways to deal with the dog is like to create safe spaces around like same-sex friends or like within your relationship. But you don't really give any advice about like how to do that. So how would you say that men and women go about doing that, creating the safe spaces?
There's a whole chapter that I devote to that, and one of it is creating ground rules. And the ground rules in the book are, one, I statements. Sometimes we like to talk in third person, but own it. The other part is no judgment. You cannot judge in a safe space. You cannot judge what the other person says. And this is really, really important because we need safe spaces to talk. And what is a safe space? It could just be one other person that you talk to about what's really going on underneath the surface. Very, very important to have. As men, we don't talk. We suppress. Anything we suppress, we empower. We empower actually to destroy us. So as men, you got to have somebody that you can talk to and say, hey, yo, man, here's what's going on. Now, in a relationship sense, what I say is that if you're in a relationship and you have someone of the opposite sex that you're telling things to that is not the person you're with, I argue that's an unsafe space. Because telling someone of the opposite sex what's going on in your relationship instead of telling the person that you're in the relationship with can become a liability to the relationship. So it's really important to navigate that. And I put a lot of tips and tools in that particular chapter on how to do it.
Where the brothers at, though? Where are the questions from the brothers?
There it is.
That's a call to action.
Call to action. There we go.
One time for the young king. Y'all give it up for the young king.
So you talk about mastery, and when you finally get like that control of yourself. Sometimes men like to go back and try to right the wrongs that they made. So what would you say as far as steps? And sometimes you don't need to dive back in the situation that you were previously in, trying to fix something because you can kind of give the wrong message. So what would you say as far as steps to take to kind of manage that like healing process to get over those like things that you may have messed up in the past?
Yeah, I think that it's important to own up to those mistakes and use wisdom to do it. You know, I think if you're referencing maybe women you've dated that you may have hurt and you want to make it right, I think you have to use wisdom on how to do that. You know, if that's a text, if that's a letter, if that's when you see him, you apologize. I think you have to use wisdom, because to the degree how things ended, you know, it could be opening the wound again to go back and apologize for some stuff, because she may be like, well, you don't want to be with me, so what are you doing? You know, so I think you have to really use wisdom with that. But I think the biggest thing, if you can't actually verbally go back and heal those specific situations, to make the commitment to never, as best you can avoid it, put another woman in the situation that you put this woman in the situation that you now need to apologize for. I think making that commitment, that going forward you'll be intentional. Going forward you'll be honest. That's why I talk about in the book. Here's the thing. Just tell, for the brothers in the house, just tell them up front what's going on. Just be honest with them. Here, either I'm serious or I'm not. So then that way they can know what they're getting into before it's months down the road, and then you tell them, oh, by the way, I was never serious to begin to. Well, why? What we been doing? So I would say it's just important to, if you can't go back and write it, to make the commitment going forward, to not do anything to put yourself in a position to create that kind of pain.
Hello, how you doing?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing great. So my question is to you, because I have two younger brothers as well, and I wanted to ask, what's your definition of a man to you? Besides the masculinity, besides of how society views a man, what is your definition of what a man is?
Yeah, a man is one that loves, that's about integrity, character, consideration, kindness. A man is a man that practices sacrifice, puts others' needs above his own. A man is a man that's able to talk, be transparent, communicate, serves the greater good. Not into domination, not into power for power's sake. As a matter of fact, facilitates community, facilitates healing, facilitates an environment where people feel safe. To me, this is real manhood. Manhood is found in how we serve, not in how we dominate. Amen. And if we as men can get there, I guarantee you the culture and community will absolutely change. Is there another question? I know that we're shaky on time, but yes.
My question is, how do you know when a man has mastered it, or when he really means what he's saying to you?
Okay, great. This is great. So a few weeks ago, a young lady who was reading the book, she hit me up and said, I have a true testimony. I said, cool. So she said, you know, I was reading the book, it gave me information on the master and the dog, love and lust. And she said, I was dating this guy, and on the first date, you know, we prayed together. And she was like, wow, you know, man, the master is amazing. She said by the third date, he wanted to go from praying to playing. And the dog came out. And what she said, here's what she said though. She said, I didn't get upset. I didn't get out of character. She said, because I had information, it gave her poise, it gave her power, and she knew how to deal with the situation. So when you're evaluating a man, it fundamentally comes down to how he behaves. Does he care about your needs, or is he only concerned with his own pleasure? This really is the determining factor if you're dealing with a man who's...
And this brother right here with his hand up, can somebody meet him with a microphone? Oh, here you go, bro. You can take my mic. Don't worry about it.
Yes, why don't you do her? She's like patient.
Thank you. Okay, so we came from Dallas Baptist University.
Hey.
Yeah, so my question, I was thinking through, because I've seen all your promotions for the book, and I was interested, but at the same time I was thinking, just because I'm in my studies and I'm trying to be focused, I'm not really looking for a relationship yet, but I want to have the advice that I need to apply once I get into it. So my question was, what would be your advice to young college women who do not desire to date or get married just yet to do with the information provided in the book?
It is great. I love it. What did you say? Yeah, I love that question. There's a whole chapter in the book. Well, first of all, for the women that have read the book, what's fascinating is that even though I'm talking about, you know, love and lust in a man, many women are saying that they're getting two things from the book. One, even though I'm talking to men regarding that, they're getting a lot of information about themselves. Because even though I don't address it a lot, women have love and lust in them too. So they're getting a lot of information on how to control that. The second thing is they're getting information about men. The other thing is a whole chapter about discipline. And no matter who we are, we have to have discipline. For us to become the successes that we can become, we have to put discipline and self-control in every area of our life. So even as someone who's not interested in getting married yet, not interested in a relationship, discipline is still something that's important to help propel your success. And the book devotes a lot of attention and time to giving tips on how to get discipline. So I think where you are, I honor it. I think it's amazing. No, seriously, because I talk about in the book that too often the culture wants to make women who are single feel like they have a disease. Something's wrong with them. I'm like, no, you're single because you're whole. Exactly. You say you ain't right. Everybody's not right for you. It's okay. So I love the fact that you're owning that, and when it's time and you're open to it, fantastic. But I do think the book can help you even now in this season.
Hello, my name is Isaiah Smith. I'm a junior at Paul Quinn College, and I major in business management. One of the questions, the question is, a lot of men deal with insecurities. So if a person can use success, money, and all those accolades to try to have the confidence to talk to a girl, what exactly do you need to talk to her?
You know what? It's great. I love it. I love it. This is why we're doing this. Man. Yeah. You know what it is? It really starts looking in the mirror and beginning to love and appreciate who you are, who I am. You know, I was, as a teenager, I was always very kind of just focused on what I was going to do in life. And a lot of times I got a lot of ridicule. You know, kids at school would call me L7 and goody two-shoes and this and that. And for a while, I didn't like myself because I was like, man, I'm just trying to show up, trying to do what, just because I show up on class, that means what? I'm goody two-shoes. That's what we're supposed to do. But I wasn't accepted in that way. So as I got older, what I began to realize is that the less I felt good about myself, there's nothing I could do to make myself feel better. So I had to start practicing affirmations. I had to start looking in the mirror and practicing, you know what, you're okay, you're enough. You're enough. And the more that I started doing that and believing that, the more confidence I began to have. And truthfully, at the end of the day, that is the most attractive thing, when you're confident in who you are. It's not about what you have, it's about who you know you are. And as men and women, when we get confidence in that, it is the most attractive thing about us, and it will help attract the right person to our life at the right time. So I would say, my young brother, keep affirming who you are, who God created you to be, where you're going to go. Trust me, it will work as long as you believe. It ain't about what you do. It's about who you already were created to be, and what you will be, you are now becoming. About one thing I want to do. Before we get out of here, I always like to end our talks with reading a few passages from the book. One geared towards women, and then one geared towards men. I wrote this particular section, this prayer, because I feel that so often women have had to bear the brunt of pain that we as men have caused. And I wanted to write a prayer that could hopefully help heal some of that pain. I posted this prayer on Instagram a few weeks ago, and it is the most reposted post I've ever done. And there was one woman that, when she saw it, she was like, what does a man know about writing a prayer for a woman? And then she said she started to pray it, and it gave her chills. So I want to read this, and this is the acceptance prayer for women on page 88 of the book. And here's where it is. Here's what it is. Dear Lord, I accept there are things I have had to endure that I may never understand. I ask you for healing emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually. Give me comfort in the times when discomfort is the only feeling available to me. I accept that you have created me for greatness, and I commit myself to pursuing it each and every day. I accept that there are some men who cannot handle who you have created me to be, but I will not make myself smaller to fit into their limited view of who I am. I no longer accept any man who can't respect me.
Come on.
I no longer accept anyone who tries to make me feel inferior.
Right.
I no longer accept feelings of insecurity or lack of self-worth. I accept the fullness of my calling and destiny. I accept the power of the woman you have created me to be. and I will not live quietly. I roar with the excellence and authority you have given me from this day forward. In the mighty name of Jesus, we pray. Amen. 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 Also, with that, on behalf of men, I want to apologize to every woman in the house. I'm sorry for the times when we lied. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the times when we said one thing and did something else. I'm sorry for the times we didn't have your heart as our top consideration. I'm sorry for the pain. I'm sorry for the brokenness. There are some men that may have done these things to you, and you may never hear the words, I'm sorry from them. But tonight I stand in the gap so that you will know, as a man, I'm sorry to you. I want to read this last passage, and this is for the men in the house. It's on page 128, and it's called The Master's Pledge. I would ask every man, as I read this pledge, and as you make the personal commitment and decision to honor this pledge as a man, I'm asking that you would stand. As you make the commitment, I'm going to read it first. Read it. I want you to hear it before I read it. I want you to hear it. I know you're already there, but I want you to hear it.
So that means, fellas, you stand after he reads it, right?
You can start reading. You can start standing after I read it, but I want you to hear what it is first, so you know what you're going to commit to. Here we go. But I'm glad you're already there. I already know where we're going. Here we go. This is the Master's Pledge. This is for any man, and as you commit to fulfilling this pledge, I ask that you would stand. Here's the first part of the pledge. I pledge not to blame women for my actions. Women are never at fault when I lose control of the dog. Nothing a woman wears, says, drinks, or does is an excuse for improper touching, remarks, or sexual behavior, ever. If you are a man and you commit to that, I ask you to stand. I pledge to never harass a woman, period. I pledge to stop looking the other way. If I witness a friend or colleague harassing a woman, I will say something. I pledge to stop making excuses for times when I behave badly. It's not the culture, peer pressure, porn, alcohol, or anything else. It's me. I pledge to confess my sins, apologize to whom I have offended, and live to make every day right. I pledge to take a woman's no for an answer. No means no, period. It doesn't mean maybe. It doesn't mean try harder. I pledge to quit acting like my manhood is an entitlement for sex. It's not. I pledge to get the help I need if I struggle with anger or violence. I have to break the cycle of physical, psychological, and emotional abuse among men. I pledge to change my routine. If there's any part of my routine that makes me vulnerable to being less than I know I can be, I must change it. And here's the last part of the pledge. I pledge to take accountability for who I am and what I do. What I will be, I am now becoming. If you have stood, you have committed to this pledge, and you are now practicing mastery. For all the women that don't think there's hope, look at all the men standing, and I want you to give them a round of applause. We can change the culture. We can practice mastery. We can become the men we were created to be. Thank y'all.
I need y'all to keep clapping and show your love for Devon Franklin. That's beautiful. That's all right. Devon, man, thank you so much. All right. So we're going to do a little book signing. Oh, we got something else? Come on. We're going to do it in order.
Yes, CC. Yes, CC. Woo. Woo.
My name is Sierra Paris. I'm Miss Paul Quinn, 2018-2019. On behalf of the Quinn Nation, we'd like to thank you for discussing your book and sharing your words of wisdom. As a token of our appreciation, we'd like to give you guys a gift.
I get some? That's nice. Let's go.
And
And from Voices That Matter Committee, we want to give you this picture. So thank you for coming out. We appreciate it.
Oh, I'm smooth. This is nice. I'm wearing this Travis out tonight.
I just want to say thank you so much to Paul Quinn. You all are my family. I love each and every one of you. I love you back. And thank you for helping us bring this truth to the world. All right. All right. Just hit me. DM me. I'll follow you back.
All right, y'all slow down. This is a man y'all talking to. True.
Sweater